right now. Man, his Substack is great. It's called the Left Hook Substack. Democracy-ish podcast. I think he's one of the best in the business. He's so great. It's always a warm welcome for Wajahat Ali to be joining us back on the program. Wajahat, it is good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Brian, how are you, sir? I was on Piers Morgan and you weren't there, and they put me up against Michael Knowles, David Rubin, and Destiny. It was like the worst blunt rotation on earth. I missed you.
Well, you know what, Wajahat? I wish I was there with you. They actually asked me to do the show today with Chuck Todd, but they texted me at like 5 o'clock in the morning and I was sleeping and I didn't get it like 3 hours later. But I'm still waiting to do Piers Morgan with you because that would be a lot of fun.
I was actually going to do it with you, I think. They invited me yesterday, but they said at 12 p.m. I was too busy. So
But I did say Jack Posobiec, where's the Donald Trump knee pads 2 weeks ago on there. And he said I had Trump derangement syndrome. So I said he had Trump fellatio syndrome. So I did have a little fun. You told me to have a little fun and I was thinking you.
You have to have fun, man, because as you went there and you saw, especially with Piers Morgan when it comes to domestic issues, right? On international issues, he's a bit better. But on domestic issues, when I was there a week and a half ago, all they talked about was Joe Biden's health, to distract from the utter chaos that we're witnessing in America. And what I said, and I tried to be very fair, was fine. If you want to talk about Joe Biden's health, let's talk about Joe Biden's health. Let's have all the tests. Let's have everything made public. And I want tit for tat. I want everything to be made public for the actual president, Donald Trump. And they kept just deflecting. And I said, you know what? Let's have all the public records of Joe Biden and his cancer. And I want the public records of Donald Trump, the day that he was almost assassinated. We still don't know the amount of damage that was done externally or internally.
Remember when he went to Walter Reed? We never got an explanation there either.
And in all seriousness, I'm taking you at good faith. I'm trying to be fair and balanced. I'm trying to unite America. Let's find out about these two old men. One who's no longer president, and the person right now who has, is the most powerful person on earth in charge of nuclear weapons, who's about to turn 79, who's gone to golf, I think, a third of his presidency to the tune of 30 million taxpayer dollars. A person who's fallen asleep. Speaking about fellatio, he fell asleep while he was being verbally filleted. Remember that on the 100th day, as the cabinet went around, you are the greatest president. No one's better than you. He fell asleep. So once you fall asleep while being verbally filleted, maybe you've lost a step or two. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
I tend to agree with you there. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, right? I'm not Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and neither are you, but I have to ask you this. Trump was rejected from Harvard. Is it a stretch to say maybe it's just because Donald Trump is a vindictive son of a bitch and, he's going after Harvard. He doesn't even care about these student visas and all this stuff. All he cares about is going after people that didn't say yes to him. Is that fair?
I think so. Two things. Yes, I think it is fair based upon his history of unending Festivus. Festivus happens once a year for the rest of us. For Donald Trump, it's every day. I'll give you an example. The 2020 election. You lost, bro. Refuses to admit it and has signed an executive order investigating Chris Krebs, a Republican who literally just did his job. He was like a MAGA guy. He's like, yep, I'm a Republican. They asked me to, do an audit. I did the audit. 2020 election was fine. And because he didn't give him the answer he liked, he literally, this guy is being investigated for treason. So that's how petty this dude is. Not just petty, but also violent. Incited a violent insurrection. Imagine violence against Liz Cheney, who voted for him 93% of the time, but said, violent insurrection is too far. Petty as F, to the point where he refuses to admit he's wrong. It's clear that the Central Park Five are now the exonerated five. DNA evidence cleared them. And to this day, he cannot bring himself to say, I was wrong. A lot of people were wrong. I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have taken out, that full page ad in the New York Times calling for their assassination. My bad. Enjoy your life. To this day, he says, nope, they're guilty. Yep. That's how petty, egotistical, vain, and weak this man is. And so, yes, do I think that it probably adds to this current fight against universities, this Republican agenda for the past 7 years to dismantle public education ever since the Supreme Court ruled that segregation is illegal? Yes. Also, going back to the last point of him just being an old man who's deteriorating in front of our faces today, Brian, I don't know if you saw that exchange with the reporter, where the reporter is literally asking him about this attack on foreign students, this ideological test that now we're going to do an audit of foreign students, right? He had no idea what the guy was talking about, which, again, folks, should terrify you. This man, he literally, on camera, as he's signing executive orders, says, what is this? This guy,
Yeah.
This guy has fallen asleep 3 times publicly. Pope's funeral, while he was being filleted during that 100-day, like adulation of the great leader, while he was talking to MBS of Saudi Arabia, the dude fell asleep. And I think it was just 2 weeks ago where he said on camera, "What's the Congo? I don't know what the Congo is." So, and then the question is, who's actually running the show? And when it comes to immigration, bro, that's Stephen Miller. That's a white nationalist doing all this.
Absolutely. No question about it. If you're just joining us, Wajahat Ali from the Left Hook Substack, Democracy-ish podcast. So Wajahat, again, let's talk a little bit about this morning. You alluded to that. Let's talk about his response to Putin and all these attacks, more innocent women and children murdered. Every single time Donald Trump says, "I think Vladimir Putin wants peace," there seems to be another airstrike or another bombing. And then today he says, "Give me another 2 weeks. Whatever happened, I'm going to end the war in 24 hours before I even get into office." It's remember Wajahat when he talked about Obamacare when he was president first go around, "I have that replacement plan. It's coming up in 2 weeks. People are saying," and then, same thing's happening here. Give me another 2 weeks. Give me another 2 weeks. It's comical at this point, and I think a lot of people are tired of it.
I mean, especially with Russia, right? Like, who really believes that, he's going to hold Putin's feet under the fire? It's all nonsense. It's all rehearsed. It's all a script. This is a man who said he's going to end the war in like a day. War is still going on. This is a man who spent his last, it's been 4 months, parroting and promoting Russian lies and Russian talking points. Folks, Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia is the occupier, right? It is Ukrainians fighting for their freedom. It is Ukrainians fighting for self-determination, right? He met with Russia, without Ukraine. I think it was in the Middle East, right? He has, antagonized the EU. He has antagonized Ukraine. He has antagonized Canada, South Africa, Panama, Mexico, our allies. And who has he praised? Putin and MBS. There's nothing I wouldn't do for MBS, an authoritarian butcher, a man who murdered Jamal Khashoggi, a U.S. journalist. So what makes you think that he'll ever stand up to Putin? He's never said anything critical of Putin in his entire life. He literally parrots his talking points, sits there like a wounded dog, no offense to dogs, as Putin mocks and ridicules the United States of America, mocks and ridicules. Remember in the first administration, Putin was sitting there mocking and ridiculing our CIA and FBI, and Donald Trump sat there and nodded his head. So he's not going to do anything, folks. And this is a man who, speaking about conspiracy theories, not conspiracy theories, just follow the money. He's completely compromised, right? Like it was Russia through Deutsche Bank that bailed out Donald Trump. So he's like, these guys are my friends, they're my buddies, and that's probably a reason why that's the one person, speaking about a man who has grievances against everyone, the one person Donald Trump has never publicly criticized, Vladimir Putin.
True. Very true. Let's talk about, because I don't think I've spoke to you since this $400 million gift, Qatar gift. I don't think that he's ever going to return this to anybody.
Nope.
I don't think he's ever going to fly it as president of the United States, because quite frankly, I think it cost too much money just to rip it apart and go through it. That would take years, I've heard, and maybe upwards of like $1 billion to go through this thing. So I think he's actually going to keep it himself. And when he leaves office, I think he's going to be flying in it. What do you say?
First of all, I call it a bribe. I mean, I know you meant gift with the wink, but let's just call it for what it is. It's a bribe. Yep. Just like this MAGA murder budget, it's a theft, a wealth transfer, the biggest wealth transfer to the richest people on earth at the expense of our Social Security and our food supplements and our benefits and our healthcare, right? It's an oligarchy, it's theft, and this is a bribe by Qatar. And they, Donald Trump, as Danielle Moody, my co-host, says, is a 2-bit hooker, right? His legs are wide open and spread apart. Like everything's for sale. I'm sorry to use such a crass analogy, but folks, this is a man who literally openly accepted a bribe from Qatar. Qatar now owns him, right? What's the price? A $400 million luxury plane in the sky that he will donate to the Trump Presidential Library. Oh yeah, because he's a reader. No, he's going to use it himself. And I hope he doesn't use it for Air Force One, because my God, a completely compromised plane given to you by a foreign country. No, Air Force One is like the Oval Office in the sky. So I hope he doesn't use it as Air Force Ones, because let's just see, when he does the math, he's like, oh wow, it costs so much. So that's my prayer. Please God, let it cost too much, because he wants to use it as Air Force One. But then also last week, literally, I'm auctioning off the White House, access to the White House, pay for play. And all these multimillionaires came, they bought his stupid meme coin. And what we find out this week, just yesterday, one mother came, gave $1 million, and her son, a tax cheat, just got pardoned, Brian. So it's all pay for play. The White House is for sale. America's for sale. And then I want people to have receipts. Remember that they had classified documents in Mar-a-Lago and the FBI begged him to return it and he never returned it. Why did he take those classified documents? Who did he share it with? What, if I'm thinking like Donald Trump now and looking at his pattern of behavior, I would have sold it to the highest bidder, Brian.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And I think that probably did happen. And we might never not know the actual truth to that. Looking forward now, you mentioned, this bribe, this $400 million gift. I'm just wondering, looking forward now and listening to Caroline Levitt, I wanted to ask you about her lie every single day. She called a deal with the UK miraculous. She said that on Fox News yesterday. She talked about how the economy was so terrible under Joe Biden, so great under Donald Trump. They make it sound like, you mentioned Stephen Miller, they make it sound like gas prices have gone way down. Inflation has gone way down. The economy is headed in the right direction. Look at this new Rasmussen poll that suggests that most Americans think America's headed in the right direction, when this is the same guy who had just the lowest approval ratings in 70 years in the first 100 days in office. How can you take anything that Caroline Levitt says with any bit of truth?
I'm rereading 1984. I'm trying to read fiction. And I just got to the line yesterday where the narrator says, the final most essential command was not to believe the evidence of your eyes or trust the evidence of your ears, right? I'm paraphrasing it. And that's what we're witnessing. That's what happens in authoritarian regimes. Don't believe your eyes, don't believe your ears, just trust us. It's a Rasmussen poll, which is like the same thing as a poll written by like my 5-year-old daughter. Just useless. But the point is that most Americans, right? The one thing that most Americans could always guarantee on is they love money. Money rules the world, right? In God we trust. And people at the end of the day, they know how much they're paying for gas. They know how much they're paying for eggs. They know how much is in their bank account. It's very hard to spin the economy, which is why, going back to that old adage, it's the economy, stupid, right? And Donald Trump right now is underwater on the economy, on inflation, on tariffs. He's underwater pretty much across the board. Some polls have him barely above water in immigration, but even on Abrego Kilmar Garcia, he's negative, right? So it's going to take, sadly, Brian, Danielle and I were talking about this early today. Danielle asked me, how much more pain will Americans have to endure before enough wake up? And my answer was more. It's going to take more. And we're going to get there sooner than later, folks. It's only been like 4 months. And Walmart CEOs and Target CEOs last month, in that meeting, allegedly, they told Donald Trump off the record, we're worried about our shelves being empty in the summer due to this trade war. Donald Trump last week, out of vindictiveness, said tariffs on the EU. Why? Just cuz, right? So what's going to happen? Prices are going up. Price of eggs are up. Price of gas is up. People can't afford groceries. Moody's literally just downgraded U.S. credit rating for the first time in history, right? People aren't visiting us, right? Because of this retaliation. Canadians aren't visiting us. Mexicans aren't visiting us. Europeans aren't visiting us. A lot of these cities and a lot of these towns in America depend on tourism, especially in the summer. So think about it. In addition to all this, as you're gutting veteran affairs, right? Literally firing people, State Department, USAID, thousands of people being fired. They don't have an income. They don't have what? Healthcare. They can't spend money. You're getting rid of all these immigrants. Just common sense, Brian. What does that do to the economy?
It absolutely destroys our economy. I mean, we rely on so many of these good, hardworking people. I think the biggest problem when it comes to immigration right now, what the Trump administration is doing, Wajahat, is people don't have due process. There are women that are getting separated from their 1-year-old daughters while breastfeeding. There are people that are getting gay hairdressers with tattoos of mom and dad with no violent criminal record who attempted to come through a legal port of entry seeking asylum that are sitting in an El Salvador prison right now. People are not getting due process, and they always talk about the Constitution, these MAGA Republicans. Last I checked, correct me if I'm wrong, and the Constitution says any person. Doesn't say documented or undocumented, but it's funny how MAGA Republicans just seem to comb over the wording there, don't they?
Well, not just, it's not just MAGA Republicans. Let's be honest. Elisa Slotkin, the centrist Democrat, also parroted that talking point. Oh, it's U.S. citizens. Nope, it's persons. The founders could have said citizens. It's persons, right? And what Stephen Miller and Caroline Levitt, unfortunately, some centrist Democrats, in order to appear tough on immigration, are saying, no, this only applies to citizens. Nope. Persons, right? We have due process thanks to the Fifth Amendment. The writ, the grand writ, the great writ of habeas corpus, right? You can challenge your detention, right? Anyone can challenge their detention thanks to Article 2, which prevents the government, such as an authoritarian regimes, to literally kidnap people, without due process, right? And say, Brian, he said seditious content. Like, wait, I did? So we had to come and just, abduct him from his studio, and his family won't know when he'll get home, but just trust us. Just trust us. He's a traitor. No, that's why you have the habeas corpus, right? Like, you can challenge your detention. And the fact that, they're trying to suspend the right to habeas corpus, which has only been done 4 times before, and they're saying this is wartime. You have to listen to Stephen Miller. He says, we're being invaded right now. This is wartime, which is why we have to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 and why we have to suspend habeas corpus. That should be leading news. Like, that is dictator type level stuff that is happening in the United States right now. But tell me more about Joe Biden's health.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about that. And actually, Wajahat, that was going to be my last question for you. And I think it's a fundamental difference between Republicans and Democrats today. You remember when the useless turtle, Mitch McConnell, was freezing up and he had these health problems, right? Joe Biden was the first guy to pick up the phone and call him to see how he was doing. How do we know this? Because Mitch McConnell talked about it. And I remember when Paul Pelosi was bludgeoned with that hammer and almost died. And you had people like Ted Cruz and Matt Gaetz putting out conspiracy theories, not wishing him well, but saying it was some sort of gay relationship and that he let him in. And they never retracted any of that stuff. But yet when Joe Biden has cancer and it's announced and it's gone to the bone and we know it's very serious, what do some of these MAGA Republicans, and very popular, some of them, right-wingers on social media do? They gloat. They say, I hope he goes to hell. You don't see thoughts and prayers. And even MAGA Republicans who are politicians, they'll say, J.D. Vance did that. Well, I'm sorry for him and his family, and then they go into conspiracy theories. They can't just leave it alone, Wajahat, and say, I wish him and his family very well during this very difficult time. That's all you have to say. But they have to.
Last week on Piers Morgan. That was the whole thing, is that Piers Morgan is like, I wish him well, but conspiracy theory. And I'm like, whoa. And I called out the conspiracy theory. They couldn't even wait 2 hours. It was Don Jr., then J.D. Vance. Perpetual grievance, conspiracy theory. He was hiding something, this, that, this. And as you know, my daughter is a stage 4 cancer survivor. She's turning 9. She had cancer. She was diagnosed 7 years ago, and 6 years ago, excuse me. And, she had a full liver transplant, and thankfully, knock on wood, she's healthy. What I tried to educate them is, I left my daughter for a trip. Perfectly healthy. She was about to turn 3. And 2 days into my trip, my wife calls me and says, I took her to the emergency room. I saw bumps on her stomach, and then I thought she had eaten something. And then the nurse came in, and said, I have terrible news. She has stage 4 cancer. That's how quickly, so if God forbid anyone who's watching right now, may you never go through this. May you and your loved ones never have cancer. It's the number 2 killer after cardiovascular disease. Yes, no matter how young you are, no matter how old you are, you can be perfectly healthy. And guess what? You can find out just like that, going for a normal checkup. Oh, by the way, we found something in your lung, right? So I was trying to say that to them, and they're like, no, but he's 82, but he's the president. Surely they hit it. And I'm like, okay, let's play this game. Everything you want from Joe Biden, I want from Donald Trump. And then they're like, pivot, gish gallop, deflect.
Yep, absolutely. If you don't mind me asking, how's your daughter doing now? Is she doing better?
She's a diva. She's about to turn 9, fully healthy, super confident, knock on wood, nothing's come back. We do that, her whole life's going to be interesting because she had a full liver transplant, but, she's healthy. So she had stage 4 cancer. It was all over the liver and had moved to the lung. Joe Biden has stage 4 cancer, has metastasized to the bone. He's much older. So, it's not looking great for Joe Biden. Let's be honest. It's not looking great. And so, I have my critiques of Joe Biden. But maybe I'm so biased because I've gone through it as a parent. I don't wish cancer on anyone, even my worst enemy, assuming I have any enemies. All you got to do is I disagree with this person, but cancer is terrible. And what is the Trump administration doing right now? They have cut 31% of cancer research budget in the first 100 days. They're trying to eliminate $11 billion from the public health infrastructure. I don't know about you, Brian, but if I was corporate media, that to me would be the big news, while Joe Biden talked about his cancer diagnosis, that in 100 days, this Trump administration has cut 31% of our nation's cancer research.
I would also say that, Wajahat, you not wanting anybody to have cancer doesn't make you biased. It just makes you a good, decent human being. And I'm with you. Your daughter sounds like a warrior. I'm sorry you and your family have had to go through that, but I wish the best for your daughter and your family. Before I let you go, how can people catch your Substack? It's a great Substack. And, of course, your awesome podcast, Democracy-ish. How can people follow that?
Yeah, so it's theleft.substack.com, the left hook on Substack. I've made everything free. There's no paywalls. I depend on the kindness of strangers. If you have a few bucks, please give it. But I believe in an informed citizenry. I write, I interview folks. We keep it real. We keep it blunt. We try to keep it honest. And I co-host Democracy-ish every Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time with the fabulous Danielle Moody. You should have her on sometime. She's great. And you can find that on Danielle Moody's YouTube. And we keep it real, folks. And we don't bend the knee. And we use words like fascist and authoritarian and white supremacy. And we criticize the Democrats too, because the establishment has it too. And our intention is not restoration, it's reformations, right? So we're interested in reformation because I think many of your listeners agree that you can't go back to the good old days. They weren't that good for the rest of us, Brian. We need some fighters.
Absolutely. You're one of them. I would love to have your co-host on my show. It'd be a pleasure to do that. And we still have to get on Pierce Morgan together. We're
this close. This close. If you and I had both said yes, we would have been on today.
Well, I guess I'm their backup because, they texted me. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning, but I was sound asleep. Wajahat, I love you, man. You're the best. Keep up the great work. Keep up the fight. Love your podcast. And we'll have you on again soon. And I appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Wajahat Ali, everybody. One of the best in the business. I love that guy. He's great.